Hey guys, it's Charlene. Today I'm working with the Reely Great Guy's stamps and coordinating dies. I'm also going to be using this 3-piece stripes stencil, which is great. You have horizontal, vertical, and then angled stripes. And then I'm also going to be working with the Brights 6x6 paper pad. Lots of fun colors in here, large dots, small dots, lots of good stuff. I'm making an A2 size card today, so I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of cardstock, and I've used the stencil from the set that has the lines on the diagonal. I went ahead and adhered that with some low-tack tape, and now I'm coming in with this light teal kind of turquoise color, just making sure to get a really nice even coating across the entire stencil. On top of that, you're going to see here, I'm going to use some lime green ink. So I'm taking my stencil off, I'm adjusting it just slightly up. I still want to make sure that the edges are in the exact same spot, but I'm adjusting it up. So what's going to happen when I apply the lime is that I'm going to get a combination of the lime and the teal color, but I'm still going to also have a small white stripe as well. So you'll see here when I take off the stencil, it's the teal color, then a combination of the teal and lime, then you'll see the lime, and then you'll see a white. So you end up getting 4 stripes just using the one striped piece, and that'll show up really nicely once it's dry. So I used a circle die from the Build a Window number 9 dies, and I cut out 2 circles, and then I trimmed off the edges of that stenciled piece. I've taken a piece of the blue paper with small dots and cut it just slightly smaller than my stencil piece, and this is all going to get applied to my card base. I'm coming in now with the stamps from the Reely Great Guy stamp set. I'm using just a few of them. This is an awesome set. Great for Father's Day, but also great for any other kind of holiday, birthdays, anniversaries, anything like that. I'm using the vest fishing pole and 2 of the fish. I absolutely love the fishing pole in this set. It is so detailed and cute, and I love the coordinating die, how it cuts it out. You'll see it just looks awesome. I've stamped everything in alcohol marker friendly ink, and I used the premium Color Me cardstock from Photoplay Say It with Stamps, which is fabulous for coloring on. I love it so much. It's super smooth. And I'm coming in here coloring the vest. I'm using E41, E43, and E47. And on this cardstock, I found that it works pretty well for me to actually start with my darkest color and then go to my medium tone and then blend everything out with my light. I think especially when I'm working in kind of smaller spaces, it works really well. So you can see I'm getting that nice shading underneath the pockets there, and then in the arm areas and all the way around the edges, I did some shading with that dark E47. I think this is a great combination. I was going for a khaki style vest. So for the fishing pole, I have used some W2 and W5 for the handle to give it a look of cork. I kind of thought that worked well for cork using warm grays. And then for my reel, I'm using some B95 and B97. And then for the actual pole, I am using C1, C3, and C5, a nice cool grays to kind of make it look like silver for the fishing pole. My little fishies, this is not true to life. I know there's not these type of fish generally in lakes or streams, but I wanted them to be nice and bright and color coordinate with the remainder of the card. So definitely don't be afraid to use some fun colors when you are coloring in critters. You don't always have to make everything look true to life. For these guys, I used BG01 and BG05, and then I also used BG13 and BG15. Really easy 2 marker coloring. I just went along and did the shading in the darker tone and then came in and blended it out with the lighter tone. I did leave my stamps on my MISTI so that way I could come back in and re-stamp to really darken up those lines. And I'm actually using some black pigment ink to do that. You could re-stamp using the same alcohol marker friendly ink, or you could use black pigment ink like I'm doing here. I decided I wanted to use the pigment ink because I wanted it to stay wet longer, so that way I could use some clear embossing powder over everything and get a really nice shine on all of the items on the card. I did not use any kind of anti-static powder tool. That's mostly because I am using clear embossing powder, and this awesome Color Me cardstock is super smooth, so I generally don't have any issues with embossing powder when it's clear, having it stick somewhere it shouldn't. So get that nice and coated, tap off any extra, and then I can come in with my heat gun and melt everything. When you do use black pigment ink and you stamp with clear embossing powder, you get a nice shine on top of the pigment ink. It does look different from than if you were to say heat emboss with black embossing powder. So I encourage you to try it both ways when you're making cards because it does look different between the two. Once I have that done, I can cut everything out using the coordinating dies, and you're going to see in just a few minutes here how cool that fishing pole looks once it's cut out with the die. Now here I am going to use some anti-static powder, and that's because I am going to heat emboss my sentiment, and I'm using white embossing powder on that piece of pattern paper. I definitely do recommend using the anti-static powder tool when you are stamping any kind of sentiment. The spaces are just so small in between the letters that any little stray piece of embossing powder is definitely going to show up. So you can see I am using my heat gun from the back here. You could do it from the top or the back, either way. I do like to use the heat gun on the back of paper when I am heat embossing sentiments. I feel like it is easier for me, but you should try it. There's lots of different ways to heat emboss. You don't have to just hold your heat gun on it from the front. Now I am gluing the piece of pattern paper to the center of my A2 card base, and this is just a side folding card. It is one of the card bases that is pre-cut and scored by Photoplay Say It with stamps, which is awesome. It makes it so much easier. To create some dimension on the card, I'm using some ThermoWeb double-sided adhesive foam tape. It comes in a large roll, which makes it really easy just to cut off whatever pieces you need. And I've kind of fit them in here and there, and then I'm just making sure I feel like there is enough support before I remove that release paper and stick it all down on top. Now this is going to give you kind of the illusion of water is what I was going for here. I know it's polka dot paper, but I think it looks like water back behind the striped stencil. So another tip there, you don't always have to have what would be considered water. Like you don't have to use a stencil, you don't have to cut out pieces of waves or something like that. You can use your pattern paper and use it in such a way that it represents water. So a fun way to use up pattern paper. I love the bright 6x6 paper pad because it has such fun bright colors and interesting patterns on it. It's great for cards. I've used a slightly thinner foam square from ThermoWeb for the vest because I wanted it to have a little bit different layer of dimension from the other pieces on the card, and also because the fishing pole is going to go over that part of the card. You'll see that in just a moment here. You can see I'm putting on some liquid adhesive there, just going around dotting everywhere along the fishing pole. Some of that is not going to be stuck to anything, but it'll just dry and you'll never see the back, so it's not a big deal. And now I'm going to take that fishing pole and just put it right across on the diagonal on my card. Being careful not to wiggle too much, and then what I want to do is make sure that pole goes over the top left of the bottom circle, and then that the line goes over the top circle on the bottom right, if that makes sense. So that way it's kind of the focal point of the center of the card, but because it is balanced, it's going to then allow your eye to get drawn down to that bottom right circle, which is the heaviest thing on the card because it has the sentiment and the two fish. come in here with a couple of clear baubles to represent some water, and that's the card. Love this sentiment. You are so fly. I think any guy in your life that likes fishing would love this card. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe, as well as the notification bell, so that I can continue bringing you more crafty content in the future. Until next time, happy crafting.